This conference will now be recorded.
I'd like to call the caucus meeting of November 4th, 2020 to order. Present are council members Broussard, Williamson, Schuman, Glassburn, Kelly, the mayor, our director of law, our planning and development director, and our guest this evening. And our council clerk. Before we begin with the agenda tonight, are there any additions or corrections to the caucus meeting minutes of October 20th, 2020? Seeing none, Councilman Limpert is also at caucus today. And moving into our agenda for tonight, we have one piece of legislation that was requested for suspension of the rules. That's on second reading, ordinance 2020-112, to request our Director of Finance to request proposals from certified public accountants to provide gap conversion assistant services for the comprehensive annual financial report. And Councilman Schuman, this was in finance.
Yeah, Madam President, this went through very smoothly. In fact, there were no questions after the finance director got done, and I don't have any problem with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any objection to suspension? Seeing no objection. And now we will move into our legislation on first reading to be assigned to committees, and let the record reflect that Councilwoman Heeman is at caucus as well. For first reading, resolutions 114, 115, and 116 will go into finance. Ordinance 117 will go into public safety, health, and welfare. Resolutions 118 and 119 will go into recreation, public parks, and buildings. Resolution 120 will go into streets and transportation. And ordinance 121 will go into public safety, health, and welfare. And looking for our schedule at next Tuesday, November 10th, to schedule our committees. It looks like we have a number of things to schedule that are new to council, and then also we might need to add some additional things for some legislation that was still in some of our committees. So we'll start with Councilman Broussard.
Mic's off.
Yep, thanks.
As I was saying, thank you. For ordinance 117, I think that should take about 5 or 10 minutes. And then for 121, that one may take a little bit longer, maybe 15 or 20. So I think I should probably allot myself a minimum of 20 up to 30 minutes for the two.
Thank you. Just doing a quick check with Councilwoman Williamson for BZD. Were you interested in having the chicken coop legislation talked about next week, or is that not something that you wanted on our agenda next week?
I believe Director Lieber said that more research was coming in, so I don't know where they're at with that, so I'm going to leave it. I can address it with her, and perhaps we can do it on a different committee night. I don't know if she's here or not. But
I'm
Yes.
here. I'd agree
Oh.
to push it back to a different evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Schuman.
I apologize. You gave me 114 and what else?
115 and 116.
Okay. So, I'm sure we're gonna need 25 minutes or something. So, what's the clock at now?
7:20.
So we'll say 7:20 to 7:45.
Thank you. And Councilman Lippert. Councilman, there seems to be a lag. I know that you unmuted yourself, but maybe if you could start talking again. We're still not hearing you, Councilman. I'm sorry, you're not coming through.
Is this any better?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Dialed out and dialed back in. All right. So I would like to schedule streets to cover resolution 2020-120 and then also 2020-111. And I believe that was 7:25 is my time slot to start.
45.
7:45. So I'll go from 7:45 to, let's say, 8:15.
Thank you.
Or sorry, 8:05. 8:05. 20 minutes. 8:05. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Kelly.
Thank you. So 2020, 118 and 119 will start at 8:05. Thank you.
Thank you. And about how long do you think, Councilman, you will need for that meeting? About 10 minutes?
For the two, for the Recreation Committee,
Yes.
yeah, 10's probably good.
Okay, thank you. And then we will schedule a committee of the whole meeting at 8:15. Okay. And all right, so that is, we've gotten through tonight's agenda. Council members, is there anything to bring up at this point? Councilman Glassford.
Thank you, Madam President. It's my intention to offer two amendments on the sign legislation -79 that we've discussed before, one concerning the residential districts and one concerning the frequency for electronic message centers. So we may want to have discussion then since we're close to 8 o'clock, but wanted to flag that.
Thank you. If you wanted to proceed and notify council members what the amendments are, we still have a good
Sure.
5.
Okay, the first is 1163, section 12, subsection C, ground signs, number 8, electronic message centers, item A, which reads, only one ground sign on each lot may have an electronic message center except that electronic message centers shall be prohibited in residential districts and on lots with any local designated historic district. The amendment is to remove in residential districts and. I understand the desire to further protect residential districts. We are taking additional measures already by cutting the luminosity in half with other sections. And this would create a prohibition that if our intention is to send these to the appeals board, I'm not sure that having prohibition is the correct starting point for the appeals board to be considering something that's prohibited. So that is the first. The second is relatively simple. It's the same long area except for item D, which currently reads messages can only change once every 24 hours. I would remove once and add 4 times. The gist of that is we have a sign on City Hall that changes once every 15 seconds. I don't think it is fair for us to tell businesses and residents, churches, schools, whatever may be the users of these electronic message centers, that once a day is all that is safe for them. We don't want to have a Las Vegas strip, but there's a wide difference between once and Las Vegas. And so I think the reasonable thing to offer would be 4 times.
Okay, thank you. Council members, any questions regarding those amendments? Seeing none, is there any other announcement, or Councilman Schuman?
Just real quick, I mean, anything that goes before the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals, isn't prohibition the language that we use? Maybe Mr. Garreau could respond to that.
Director?
Madam President, thank you. It's not unusual. I mean, the notion of an appeals board appeal, there's a couple different categories couple different mechanisms you can use to get there. But if it's a zoning code variance, it's usually a restriction. It won't allow you to do something, and then you're asking the board for, you meet the criteria for the specific reason why you want to do it, and the code says you can't. So it might say prohibition, or it might have specific regulations, and you want to do something other than what those regulations allow. It's kind of 6 is 1, half a dozen of the other, but yeah. So it would be not authorized under the code, no matter how it's either isn't permitted expressly or it's flat out prohibited, and then you would seek the variance before the BZBA. Thank you.
Councilwoman Yeaman.
Thank you, Madam President. I think that using the entire negative term and saying prohibited would even hinder someone from wanting to even file an appeal because it's prohibited. You don't really get to argue the speed limit when it says that's the speed limit. It just is. And so I think that is inappropriate language, and I don't understand the restrictive and conflicting language, actually. The residential areas that these might affect are actually areas that don't have good lighting anyway, and the luminosity is already regulated. I really don't understand why we would want conflicting language like that.
Okay, thank you for that discussion. And if there are no other announcements from anyone, we will roll into our council meeting in about 1 minute.